Hi friends! Something big is brewing behind closed doors, and the world has no idea just how serious it is. In the coming days, a meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin is expected to take place. The location has already been agreed on. Preparations are underway, and next week is being considered for this high-stakes conversation. Some even whispered about a possible three-way meeting including Zelensky, but Moscow stayed silent. Could this unexpected summit change everything we thought we knew about the war in Ukraine? But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We bring you the most urgent global updates, exclusive conflict insights, and accurate forecasts you won't find elsewhere. Yes, you read that right. A meeting between the former US president and the Russian leader is no longer just a rumor. It's happening. The location? Already agreed upon, though still kept under wraps. The timing? Targeted for next week, though preparations could stretch things out slightly longer. But the real story, that lies in the why, and what could happen next. Trump and Putin haven't shared a room in years, and yet, out of nowhere, channels have been activated, agreements drafted, and logistical wheels set in motion. According to Russian sources, both sides have already begun detailed coordination. Moscow is now informing its allies and partners about the upcoming talks. That in itself speaks volumes. Here's where things get even more interesting. Howard Lutnick's confidant, Jeff Witkoff, a name known more in business circles than in diplomacy, has been playing an unexpected behind-the-scenes role. According to insider leaks, Witkoff floated the bold idea of a trilateral meeting involving Putin, Trump, and none other than Volodymyr Zelensky. That's right, a three-way table where two bitter enemies and a wildcard mediator would sit face to face. And how did Moscow respond? Silence. Not a rejection, not a confirmation, just calculated quiet. That silence alone is telling. Sometimes, no comment says more than 1,000 words. Now let's pause for a second. Think about this timeline. Just months away from the 2024 US presidential elections, Trump is positioning himself as not just a candidate, but a peacemaker. This isn't a man running for office anymore. This is someone stepping back onto the global stage before the ballots are even printed. And Putin? He's opening the door, something he rarely does without strategic intent. What could this mean for Ukraine, for Europe, for the fragile equilibrium that's held NATO, the EU, and the post-Cold War order together? These aren't just hypotheticals. These are the real stakes. It's no secret that Trump has long claimed he could end the war in 24 hours, a statement many brushed off as political bravado. But what if this meeting is the first move in a broader gambit to test that claim? What if the man once dubbed Putin's favorite is now attempting to become the architect of peace? Or, at the very least, the kingmaker in a new geopolitical game. And here's the twist that most people missed. While everyone's focused on the headlines about possible talks, few are asking why this is all happening now. The truth is, a window is quietly opening. Ukraine is exhausted. Russia is bruised but resilient. Europe is distracted. And America, it's on the edge of a new election cycle, with the current administration struggling to keep up with the shifting dynamics on multiple fronts. The conditions, in other words, are fragile, but ripe for diplomacy, for deals, for backroom maneuvers that could, in time, spill onto the battlefield itself. And don't forget the messaging to Moscow's allies. The Kremlin isn't hiding this. It's broadcasting it to its friends and partners. That's not just information sharing. It's signaling to Beijing, to Tehran, to Pyongyang, to New Delhi. Moscow is saying, we're talking, things are moving, watch this space. What does all this mean for Zelensky? That's a question no one seems eager to answer. A trilateral meeting might look like a diplomatic breakthrough, but it could also mean pressure. Pressure to accept terms, to compromise, to face not just Moscow's firepower, but Washington's political calculus. And that's where this gets truly unpredictable, because if Trump reclaims power, everything changes. Sanctions, military aid, Western unity, the script flips, and the meeting that's now just being planned could soon be remembered as the turning point. So, is this really just a meeting, or is it the first chess move in a much bigger game? Stay tuned, because this isn't over. In fact, it may have only just begun. And here's something that should send chills down the spine of every Western strategist. This isn't just about Putin and Trump sitting down for tea. This is about a potential rewiring of global alliances. And it's happening fast, behind the curtains, with very few people asking the right questions. Let's be brutally honest. For Moscow, this meeting is more than just an opportunity. It's leverage. Russia knows the current Biden administration is invested in maintaining a firm anti-Kremlin stance. But what if that changes? What if the US narrative shifts? Not because of battlefield dynamics, but because of election year politics. Trump's strategy here isn't just about appearing strong, it's about reclaiming relevance on the international stage. The very possibility of him returning to office already makes foreign leaders listen. And that includes Putin. For all their tensions, they share something critical: transactional minds. If they sit down, they won't waste time with pleasantries. They'll trade interests. And Zelensky? He's in a corner. The very idea of Trump and Putin negotiating behind closed doors must feel like a trapdoor opening beneath his feet. If Washington's next president sees Ukraine not as a fight for freedom, but as a costly distraction, Kiev's diplomatic capital will vanish overnight. That's why a trilateral meeting, though far from confirmed, is a geopolitical earthquake waiting to happen. Let's dig deeper. Why would Putin even entertain this meeting now, when he spent the last 2 years brushing off Western initiatives? The answer is simple: timing. Russia has suffered enough to want a breather, but succeeded enough to negotiate from strength. With the front lines largely frozen and sanctions fatigue spreading in the West, Moscow sees an opportunity to flip the board. For Trump, this is also about legacy. Imagine walking into the 2024 debates, not just as a former president, but as the man who brought Putin to the table. Whether the deal is real or not doesn't matter. The image does. Trump doesn't need results, he needs optics. And this meeting gives him exactly that: a global stage and a narrative no other candidate can replicate. Meanwhile, Beijing watches, Iran listens, the EU hesitates. Everyone knows that the power balance is shifting. What once seemed like firm alliances now look fragile, brittle, transactional. Because the truth is hard to swallow. In today's world, peace talks can be just another form of power projection. And if this meeting does happen, and if it leads to any form of ceasefire, understanding, or even vague roadmap, the consequences will be massive. Military aid from the West may be halted to support diplomacy. Sanctions might be softened to encourage talks. Public opinion could flip in favor of ending the war, no matter the cost to Ukraine's sovereignty. So ask yourself, who really benefits from this meeting? Who controls the narrative? Who writes the terms? The scariest part? We might not even know the full scope of what's being discussed until it's already done. And that's the real danger. Because in diplomacy, especially diplomacy done in secret, it's not the words spoken aloud that matter most. What's unfolding behind these closed doors could very well determine the direction of the war or the terms of its end. And yet, the public sees only the surface. A handshake, a photo op, a headline. But beneath that, tectonic plates are shifting. Because, let's be clear, this is no longer just a war about borders. It's a war about influence, about narratives, about who gets to define peace. And with Trump now circling back into the international arena, the game board is being reset. Imagine the optics. Putin and Trump seated in a neutral venue, perhaps Istanbul or Geneva or even Belgrade, flanked by advisors but speaking directly. No Biden, no EU, no NATO, just two of the world's most polarizing figures, discussing a conflict that has dragged on for years, drained economies, and reshaped geopolitics. And that, right there, is the twist in the tale. Because the very fact that the meeting is being prepared, that a location has already been chosen and a time frame loosely set, tells us this isn't some hypothetical. It's real. It's happening. And the silence from key players is deafening. Moscow is staying tight-lipped. Washington is officially dismissive. Kiev is publicly neutral but privately alarmed. Everyone's watching. No one is breathing. Let's talk risks. For Ukraine, this meeting might feel like a betrayal in slow motion. Trump has never hidden his skepticism about pumping billions into foreign wars. He's hinted time and time again that peace can be bought, even if it means Ukraine gives something up. A territorial compromise, a political concession, a quiet, uneasy truce. And for Putin, this is a chance to reshape the narrative. After months of battlefield stagnation and mounting losses, he can now pivot to a different kind of victory. Diplomatic legitimacy. A seat at the table, again, not as the isolated aggressor, but as a negotiator. And if Trump is the one giving him that seat, even unofficially, that's a PR jackpot. Let's not forget the wild card: China. Beijing has stayed publicly distant, but strategically engaged. If Russia and the US begin even informal back-channel talks, it forces Xi Jinping to rethink his own balancing act, and in turn, it shifts Asia's calculations. Everyone knows, if Ukraine falls off the top of Washington's priority list, Taiwan might be next in line. And here's something else you might have missed. This meeting isn't just about ending a war, it's about beginning a campaign. Trump is already using the language of diplomacy as part of his comeback narrative. I'll stop the war in 24 hours. It sounds outrageous. Until it doesn't. Until an actual conversation with Putin happens. Until a ceasefire is floated. Until just enough uncertainty creeps into voters' minds to wonder, maybe he could. If you want to stay ahead of the curve with real-time updates, in-depth analysis, and expert insights on global flashpoints like this one, make sure to subscribe. This is just the beginning.